We are going through exercise 13G. This is question 1F, in which we have y equals log to the base 10 negative x. Now, the very first thing that should really stick out to us is the fact that we have a negative. And the reason why that should really set off alarm bells is because we know that's going to mean there's going to be a reflection. So if I come over here, we can actually say what this reflection is going to be. It's going to be a reflection across the y-axis. The reason why it's across the y-axis is because it's in front of my x. So a reflection across the y-axis. So let's write that in, y-axis. All right, let's now keep that in the back of our mind. That's going to be very relevant when it becomes time to draw. But let's now just continue on as we normally do. First by finding what my domain is going to be, remembering that you can't log 0, nor can you log a negative number. So that means whatever's inside our brackets here, what we're logging, is going to have to be greater than 0. Now, negative x is greater than 0. Obviously, what we have to do is divide both sides by -1. Now, this is where if I could, I would jump up and down and scream, because whenever you divide by a negative across an inequality, what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to switch your inequality sign, which means it's going to become this. Obviously, when you divide 0 by -1, it just remains 0. But the really crucial thing that happened is the fact that now we have x is less than 0. So I'm going to grab my highlighter, and I'm going to give that a highlight. That is so very important. Now, there is another way we can represent this, and that is, I'm actually going to have to move this a bit so we don't get confused. Let me just move this over here. Whoops, let me just do some rearranging for a second. My apologies. Like that. Another way we could represent this is by saying, or, this is from -infinity to 0. So that's just as a legitimate way to show it. But it's really, really important that you swap that inequality sign. And this makes perfect sense, because now what it's saying is that what only things that we can put in here now are negative numbers. And of course, a negative and negative are going to cancel out, and it's going to become positive, and we can log positive numbers. So it makes perfect sense as to why that inequality sign had to switch. Let's now continue on. So remember, next we have to find the range. But as always, we're just going to save that till lucky last once we've drawn it, which is going to make things a lot more straightforward. Now we have to find my x-intercept. To find my x-intercept, we let my y equal 0 as we normally do. So I come here, and what we're going to do is simply go 0 equals log of 10 negative x. So that means I'm going to go 10 raised to the 0 equals negative x. So remember, 10 is your base, 0 is your exponent, and this is your answer. This is going to be 1, because 10 raised to 0 is 1, then it's going to be negative x. Now what we're going to do is we have to get rid of this negative, so I'm going to divide both sides by it. So I'm going to get -1 equals x. So therefore, my x-intercept is going to be -1, 0. So it's going to be on this side. So now, if I was to come and draw my x-asymptote, I know that it's going to be here. Grab my pen, I write x equals 0, and then the fact that we know that this is reflected across my y-axis, we know that my domain is x is less than 0, and we know that my x-intercept is -1, 0. Like, this is all like signs that tell us that our graph is going to look like this. Ready? Oh, that's pretty bad. All right, but we're going to leave it there. Then we come over here. We have this point right here, which is going to be -1, 0. And just like that, we have our answer. -1, 0 is our x-intercept. This is what our graph is going to look like. Now, in an ideal world, what have I forgotten? I've forgotten to put in my range. But my range is simply going to be all real numbers, so nothing has changed there. And as I was saying, in an ideal world, you would put in another point, because technically we could change the base here and it would look the same. So you'd need another point, but for whatever reason, the back of the book doesn't. So I'm not going to either, not to confuse things. So hopefully this has been helpful for you in answering question 1.